Welcome to another edition of My 5 on WSBT-Radio.com. I'm Darin Pritchett for Weekday Sports Beat. Each week I come up with a topic and I try to give 5 reasons why I believe my opinion is correct. Today, something a little different. We're going to talk about the 2009 Chicago Cubs. 5 reasons why the Cubs will not win the division title in 2009. The Cubs have been the dominant team in the NL Central each of the last 2 years, winning the division title. And once again, they're the favorite to win the National League Central because they have the best talent by far in the division. So how do they not win the division? Let's try to figure it out. Number 5, Mark DeRosa, no longer on the Cubs roster, traded to Cleveland for 3 young pitchers. DeRosa could play the outfield. He could play second. He could play third. He brought a lot of versatility to Lou Piniella. If there was a tough starting pitching matchup, he could move DeRosa around and maybe get a guy on the bench into the lineup because of the versatility of Mark DeRosa. How good will the Cubs be without him? We're about to find out. I wasn't a big DeRosa guy, playing 162 games at second base, but he was an interesting piece to the Chicago Cubs puzzle. So will they miss him? That could be one of the reasons why the Cubs do not win the Central Division this year. Number 4, Milton Bradley. Acquired in the offseason as a free agent, played with Texas last year. Number 1, Milton Bradley, as a right fielder, can he play there every day? He's never played 100 games in the outfield in a season. One of the big reasons why, injuries. You take a look at each of the last 4 years, he's played 96, 19, 42, and last year 126 games. So he has not been able to stay healthy. He has a label. Many people feel as though he's a loose cannon. He's had problems with broadcasters, managers, players. It's not been an easy go in the majors for Milton Bradley. In fact, you take a look at a couple of years ago, he tore his ACL in an argument with an umpire as he was kind of jostling around with his manager, Bud Black, in San Diego. So some weird things have happened to Milton. Will he fit in the Cubs clubhouse? Can he stay healthy and play every day? A big question. Number 3 on our list, reasons why the Cubs may not win the NL Central in 2009, the Cubs outfield. We just talked about Bradley. Let's talk about Fukudome. Last year in April, he was tremendous. After April, was average at best. So they're counting on him to be the everyday center fielder. You've got Reed Johnson there as well, but also Felix PA has been shipped off. What if Bradley goes down and Fukudome is not healthy? Do they have enough depth to make up for the loss of a couple of outfielders at one time? Hoffpauir's a guy that has a great bat, but is not a guy you want playing every day in the outfield. So you'd have to count on Reed Johnson to play every day, which maybe he would be able to do. But is there depth outside of Reed Johnson to fill the void if there's an injury or if someone does not produce on an everyday basis? That's a big question. Number 2 on the list, let's leave the Cubs for a second and talk about one of the challengers, the St. Louis Cardinals. The world champions in 2006 have not been very good each of the last 2 years. But there is a possibility they could have 2 aces at the top of the rotation. Chris Carpenter, Cy Young Award winner a couple of years ago, has not won a game since the 2006 World Series because of injuries. So far this spring, he has been healthy and has looked dominant. If he gets back to his old ways, all of a sudden the Cardinals add an ace to the rotation to go along with Adam Wainwright, a young right-hander who is an ace in the making. He missed a lot of time last year due to a rare finger injury. He's back. He's healthy. When you talk about winning division titles, if you can put together a good 1-2 duo at the top of your rotation, you've got a great chance. The Cardinals could score runs last year. Their bullpen was shaky. They feel as though they have taken care of that with the evolution of a young, hard-throwing right-hander in Jason Mott as their possible closer for 2009. They've added a couple of left-handers to the rotation, so they feel as though that has put their bullpen in better shape. But Carpenter, Wainwright healthy gives the Cardinals a chance to be competitive. Now, the Cubs are going to have to come back to them. If the Cubs win 95 games, St. Louis will not be a factor. If the Cubs win 88 to 90 games, I think you've got an interesting race in the NL Central. Let's don't forget about the Cincinnati Reds. Volquez, Cueto, good young rotation with Aaron Harang at the top. If he can bounce back, good young lineup led by Jay Bruce and Joey Votto. Dusty Baker's the manager. That makes things a little shaky in Cincinnati. Cardinals, Reds, interesting. Brewers, can they overcome Sabathia and Sheets being gone? That's a huge question. So let's put a lot of emphasis on Wainwright and Carpenter if they stay healthy, and the Cubs come back to the division. Could be an interesting race. And my number 1 reason why the Cubs may not win the National League Central, the starting pitching health of the Chicago Cubs. A lot of question marks. Rich Harden has been really bothered by injuries throughout his career. Had some shoulder issues late last year like he has throughout his career. So you really can't count on him for 175 innings. If he gets hurt, that's a big, big cog out of the Cubs rotation. Zambrano struggled down the stretch, even though he threw the no-hitter against Milwaukee, was not at his best. Remember, he was hurt last year as well, mid-season with a shoulder ailment. He's a lot leaner this spring. He's been very effective this spring. The strikeouts are up. That's a good sign. And also, let's talk about Ryan Dempster. Had a great year last year, returning to the starting rotation. But he threw 200 innings. Will he be affected this year by the workload in 2008? That's a key question for the Cubs. Now, they do have some depth. Aaron Heilman was acquired from Seattle during the offseason. The former Irish pitcher will be a long relief guy, it looks like, for the Cubs starting off. But if there's an injury or someone is ineffective, he can jump into the rotation. Jeff Samardzija, another former Golden Domer, looks like he might go to AAA. Could be a bullpen guy for the Cubs, but a guy that can jump into the rotation. They feel like he can be a starter in the future. So at the very least, the Cubs have a couple of guys that can be starters in waiting if there are injuries or if someone is ineffective. So there you go. My 5 reasons why the Cubs may not win the National League Central in 2009. The loss of Mark DeRosa. Milton Bradley. Will he fit in the clubhouse? Will he stay healthy? The Cubs outfield. If starters go down with injury or if there are some issues with productivity with a guy like Fukudome, do they have the depth of guys that can play every day and do the job? Number 2, Wainwright and Carpenter healthy in St. Louis. And the number 1 reason that the Cubs may not win the National League Central, the health of their starting pitching. That's my 5. What do you think? Drop me a line, Darin at WSBT.com. That's DARIN at WSBT.com. Thanks for joining me for this edition of My 5 as we take a look at the 2009 Chicago Cubs. Tune in next week for another edition of My 5 from WSBTRadio.com. I'm Darin Pritchett.